This evening it's my pleasure to introduce author Stephen Rowley. Stephen is the best-selling author.
Run for it.
Stephen's the best-selling author of 4 novels and the winner of the 22nd Thurber Prize for American Humor. His fiction has been translated into 20 languages, and his books include Lily and the Octopus, The Guncle, The Editor, and his latest, The Celebrants, which has already been met with rave reviews. It's been named a Today Show Read with Jenna book club pick, an Indie Next pick, a Library Reads Hall of Fame pick, an Entertainment Weekly Best New Book, and a Washington Post noteworthy book. The Celebrants has been described as the big chill for our times. Megan, could you maybe turn down the volume on this a little bit? I think that's causing feedback. Thank you. The Celebrants has been described as the big chill for our times. The story follows a group of college friends who make an everlasting pact. At any point, one of the friends can call a gathering of the group, and the other members have to hold a living funeral for that friend. Over the following decades, this pact brings them together to support each other at their lowest moments. But now, as the friends are on the brink of 50 years old, they gather for the first time in 5 years, but this time is different. One of the friends has a secret that could threaten the very bonds that have kept them together. Booklist has called The Celebrants, quote, a superbly crafted narrative and a life-affirming work that is both hilarious and richly affecting, with an unforgettable cast of characters. Publishers Weekly says that, quote, Rowley offers another winning story, genuinely heartfelt for anyone needing a reminder about the importance of friendships. And Electric Literature writes, Rowley's novels deftly oscillate between tearjerker and knee-slapper, books that brim with all of life's big and small emotions, and his latest is no exception. It just might be his best yet. Stephen Rowley has worked as a freelance writer, newspaper columnist, and screenwriter. Originally from Portland, Maine, Rowley is a graduate of Emerson College. He currently resides in Los Angeles. Please join, is anyone from Emerson in here by any chance? Yeah. Please join me in welcoming author Stephen Rowley.
That was incredible. I don't know that I have anything to add. Do we have any questions? No, I'm gonna selfishly. First of all, thank you all for coming here tonight. This is really incredible. I'm gonna selfishly add one more thing because I am 52 years old and I have wanted to be a writer my entire life, and just found out that this book is my first New York Times bestseller. I mean, it's a little embarrassing. This has been quite a year, from winning the Thurber Prize to this. I know I had to ask if we were recording this, simulcasting this tonight. I've gotten in trouble twice now. So for those who don't know, I am also married to a writer. My husband, Byron Lane, is the author of a book called Big Gay Wedding, which came out on the same day as this book. A lot of people want to know if we coordinated that, if we planned that, and I wish we had been so, thoughtful. Oh, you have it. You have it. And the answer is, of course of course. But there's no way we could have. There's no way we could have. We have different publishers, we have different agents, we wrote the books at different times. We're different people, other than the casual homophobia of assuming that gay people only exist in the month of June. There is no reason why. These books came out on the same day. But we've been having a lot of fun. But so the first week of tour, Byron and I were doing it together. He did not care enough to be here tonight, apparently. And no, he's home taking care of our dogs, Raindrop and Shirley. So hi, Byron. But while we were doing an event together, we were talking about his book, Big Gay Wedding. He's getting a lot of airtime for someone who didn't care to be here. We were talking about Big Gay Wedding. Someone asked if it was inspired by our wedding, and because we had a very little gay wedding. We've been married for 2 years. It was in April 2021. People were just starting to get vaccines, and we thought, well, should we wait? Because if we do it now, his family can't come, my family can't come. And we thought, that sounds great. And I said this at an event that was being broadcast. I'm saying it again on an event that's being live streamed because the damage is already done, but my sisters were watching that that event. And I was like, oops, we didn't mean you. We didn't mean you, of course not. No. I mean, we love our families and stuff like that, but weddings have a way of snowballing out of control and sometimes overshadowing the commitment that you're trying to make together. That's what happens in a big gay wedding. But the celebrants, the second reason I got in trouble, I feel very close to you, so we're just gonna spill it all tonight, is I invited my mother to the Thurber Prize award ceremony in Columbus, Ohio in April. For those who don't know, James Thurber was a humorist, probably best known for The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, longtime New Yorker writer, contributor, cartoonist. The Thurber Award is probably the most prestigious award for written humor in the United States. David Sedaris, The Onion, David Rakoff. Last year was James McBride was the winner. David Letterman, Bob Newhart have been finalists. So like big names. And I picked up my mother for the awards, and she said, "I've read all the finalists, and I know who's going to win, and it's not you." And I told that story because I think it's very funny. But I told that story, and I didn't clarify that, of course, she wanted me to win, and she thought I deserved to win, but she didn't think I was going to. And it's probably a mother protecting her child from disappointment still. But then, surprise, mom, I did win. So that was a lot of fun. But between that and the Today Show pick, by the way, I'm going to be on the Today Show in 2 weeks. I bought a new suit for that. It's yellow. I'm having second thoughts now. It feels like a very sort of literal interpretation of the morning. Like it might be too on the nose for the Today Show. And I put it on the other day because I'm on tour and I'm by myself and I don't know what to do. I put on the suit in the hotel room and I looked in the mirror and I was like, I look like what? I don't even know if it has a name. The guy, Curious George, the guy, was it just the man in the yellow hat? Is that what it is? I'm like, I'm gonna go on the Today Show. And Al Roker's gonna be like, this guy lost a monkey. So we'll see if it survives. I also wore another suit to I'm just telling stories. I also wore another suit to the Thurber Prize, which I was feeling good that night. I thought I looked good. And person after person kept coming up to me and saying, "Oh, I wish I was brave enough to wear something like that." And at first I was like, "Oh, it's very easy. You put one leg in one fabric tube, and you put your other leg in the other fabric tube, and you just hitch it up, and you're halfway there." And then about the 8th or 9th time someone said that to me, I was like, "I don't think this is a compliment." But anyway, what are you gonna do? Wait till they see the yellow suit. So the Celebrants. That was a pretty apt description. I don't know what I can add to that, other than tell you the inspiration a little bit behind the book. Early on in the pandemic, like many other people, I was scrolling through Netflix and I almost said the A word here in an independent bookstore. Let's just say Hulu. Instead, looking for something to watch, something maybe I'd seen before, but not for a long time, something that might bring comfort, something that I might enjoy. And I stumbled across The Big Chill. Does anybody remember this movie? Yeah. Great soundtrack, right? Yeah, so that's about a group of college friends from the 60s who reunite in 1983, 84, I forget when the movie was, upon the death of one of their own. And it's a movie about middle-aged ennui and what their sort of stresses in midlife and what the back half of their lives are going to look like and how they haven't lived up to their dreams. And all the characters were 35 years old. And as someone who's turning 50 that year, I was like, that's not comforting. This is not comforting at all. So it made me think about how we changed our thinking about aging and what middle age is. Also, the title, The Big Chill, referred to that long stretch of time after you were married, after you had kids, after you owned a home, which is something people used to be able to do. And you had your career, and you probably worked for a single company, and you stayed, there to collect a pension upon retirement. And not a lot changed until you did retire or the kids left the house and whatnot. So it was just sort of like metaphorical parking lot in the middle period of life. And that's not true anymore either. People often have multiple marriages or blended families, or certainly multiple jobs and careers and reinvention, and we're likely to work for many companies, or this is a more gig-focused economy. And so it got me thinking that all the wonderful stories now sort of take place in this period of life, which we used to think is not very exciting. And so that was one jumping off point. So indeed, this is about a group of college graduates from the class of 1995 who make a pact when one of their own commits suicide right before graduation. After attending his funeral, they think if he had just been there that day and heard all the nice things that were said about him and how much he was loved and needed here, he might have made a different choice. And so they, about to scatter to the wind after graduation, make a pact to reunite at each one of their lowest moments in time to throw their funeral for them while they're still alive to hear the eulogies and the love and how much they are appreciated and needed here. And that's all well and good. They sort of go their separate ways. I'm not sure they'll ever need to trigger this pact, but it's a nice insurance policy. But then life starts to happen over the decades, and they slowly do start to reassemble, and all's well and good. But quickly the pact sort of spirals out of control. One person wants a destination funeral. One person gets a surprise funeral. So I had a lot of fun with it, but then something happens that sort of underscores the seriousness of the pact again. I am here, these characters go to Berkeley. I am here tonight in my college town. There's a few of my celebrants here tonight. And I'm very grateful for that. But those long-standing friendships are so important. It doesn't have to be college friends. It might be siblings, it might be cousins, it might be grade school friends or whatnot. But people who knew you before, when you had dreams, all our dreams are dead. When we had youthful dreams, and before life was full of promise, we didn't know, lots was open. And still know you now when some of life's uncertainties are sort of locked into place, career, marriage, etc. Sometimes those two versions of yourself align, but sometimes there's some differences there, and it's those long-standing friendships that I think help bridge, reconcile those two versions of you. And so it was a real joy to write about these friends. And the challenge in writing a book like this is creating characters and then building these friendships for them that feel time-worn and lived in, and there's resentments and drama and inside jokes, and crafting inside jokes in a way that doesn't exclude the reader, so that you feel part of that group. Since I do have at least one college friend here tonight, I will say, don't panic. There's no one here that's a one-to-one correlation from any of my college friends. However, God help any of you who are related to or friends with writers, because we are sponges. In fact, the biggest fights I ever get into with my husband is when we leave like a dinner party or something and we overhear some great bit of, great story, a great bit of dialogue, and we're like, that's mine. I claim it, you can't use it. So there probably are a few recognizable details that, but that's what makes these characters, adding those sort of little bits of detail sometimes, make these characters seem so alive and as I said, lived in. I don't know what else I was going to say on the subject. How about this book, by the way? It's really beautiful, I think. I'm obsessed with this spine too, especially for Pride Month. This rainbow-colored spine. Are there any bookstagram people I know from Bookstagram? Yeah. A lot of you like to color coordinate your shelves, your bookshelves. And I just want to tell you, you're fucked. This one. Good luck. But it's a really, I think it's a really beautiful book. So yeah, I have a question right here. I'm gonna open up a question. I want lots of questions. I'd rather be here talking about what you want to talk about.
I wanted to say that when you described your book, it kind of touched on the series that I watched, A Million Little Things.
Yeah.
It's about a group of friends that have been friends for so long. One of them is suicide. Like, I would be like, very exciting.
Yeah, so the question is, did I steal it? No. Can everybody hear that question? It reminds you of a million little things, or a million little pieces? A million little things, okay. I haven't seen it, but it should be something to check out. But yeah, I think you know, I love story. You know, even from our earliest. You know, very early on, loving like the John Hughes movies, or you know, from Breakfast Club to St. Elmo's Fire and all that, like those movies about friendship, you know, were very formative of me too. By the way, we talked about the soundtrack to The Big Chill, right? So I have created Spotify playlists for each of these characters, which I'm going to post in the coming days. And so instead of Motown hits, though, these are going to be songs from the first half of the 1990s. So you can decide maybe which character you relate to most based on their playlist. You're excited? I see somebody nodding going, which one is New Kids on the Block? Yay. But since we've broken the ice, let's chat here. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, right down front.
How has your writing kind of progressed from Lily and the Octopus to now? Like, have you made changes along the way, or what was kind of that process?
Yeah, so how has my writing grown over 4 books now, which I can't believe. I guess this is what I do now, which I feel incredibly privileged to do. But I didn't, you know, I was just like joyfully living a dream. I like, you know, there are writers here too. I like to be very honest too that, you know, Lily came out when I was 45, and I waited a long time, and I was always very jealous of people who came out of the Iowa Writers Workshop, perhaps, or had a headline making deal and sold their first novel at 25, and that was just very much not my journey. I have other books that are in a drawer even that will never see the light of day, which I'm thinking now I should probably shred so someone doesn't Harper Lee me. But sometimes it takes a couple to learn how to write them. I think this is a more mature book. I think it's a little bit more literary than some of my previous stuff, which isn't to say that it's not also very funny. Hopefully it's still very funny. I hope, you know, I think anything I do will have humor in it always. The Gunkel, perhaps, could have read The Gunkel. Yeah. It was a very dialogue-driven book, and this is a little bit more, you know, I'm just gonna say dense. That doesn't sound good. Yeah, it's a little more narrative. Yeah, come on. That's good. So yeah, hopefully I'm growing as a writer. I'd like to think I am. I'd like to think that I get better with each book, which is frustrating. Like it's hard to, you know, you do just the process of writing a book. Sometimes it takes a year or 2 years to write a book, and you're a better writer at the end of it than you were at the beginning. So then you start over and you write, okay, I'm reading the next draft, and I'm a better writer now. So then you're a better writer again at the end of it. It's like a vicious cycle until someone rips it away from you. But you know, I'm really pleased with this. I think it's also yeah. I'll leave it there for now. I can come back to this song in a second. But yeah.
Out of all of your 4 books, what was your favorite to write?
What was my favorite? Well, I'm not allowed to have a favorite, but what was your favorite?
Well, I only read one of them.
Okay.
First of all, I love the logo. I think that every day.
I'm repping the hometown tonight. I do live in Palm Springs, California, where the Gunkel took place. Ironically, I did not live there when I wrote the Gunkel, or I only lived there part-time. Do I have a favorite? You know, it's hard to say. I love them all for different reasons. You know, my first book, Lily and the Octopus, gave me the opportunity to be up here, you know, tonight. That sort of started all things, so I'm grateful to Lily for that. The Editor was a book that didn't quite find its audience in the way that I was hoping, and I think my publisher was hoping, so I feel very protective of that. That's a book I'm very proud of, and so when people come to me through the Gunkel or maybe through the Celebrants, to the extent that they go back and look at some of the backlist titles, that's always the highest compliment. Because I know what that means when I read a book I love, and then I'm like, what else? Go right up. You know, that's the highest compliment you can give a writer. And then the Gunkel is the book that kind of changed my career. and certainly it brought so many wonderful friends into my life, and particularly through the Bookstagram community. I mean, for whatever reason, that was a book that caught fire on, when I say Bookstagram, so Instagram, they're wonderful accounts devoted to books and to reading. And you all do such wonderful things for authors. You read and you craft reviews, but you also like do these incredible photographs sometimes, and they do it all for the love of reading and supporting books and giving voice to books that you love. And I'm really grateful for all that you do, and it brought so many friends into my life. So I'm also an award, so I'm grateful for that one too. And this one, and this, you'll always remember your first New York Times bestseller. So, yeah. Wait, are you wearing a caftan?
I am.
Yes!
I've read all of your books. I've read all of Byron's books, and I just wanted to say thank you to giving representation to the LGBT community, especially when I think of you talk about your growth, the character development, specifically with how Patrick and Patrick makes me. I thought was really beautiful done. I'm a teacher. I'm married to a woman. My daughter is in the book community as well. And I love the authentic representation. I like that.
Oh, thank you very much. Here we are during Pride Week. We have a cool copy right here. Does everybody know the cover? Can I hold this up for a second? Yeah. So the cover. So you're wearing a caftan tonight in honor of Patrick. I have a closet full of caftans. People send me caftans. They do, which is really lovely. Love a good caftan moment. People are angry that I'm not in a caftan right now. I do actually own pants. Yeah, we could trade. Yeah. I love this cover. It feels very Palm Springs. I fight very hard for my covers because I think I fought very hard against the title actually because it takes a long time to write a book. You hope a book has a long shelf life. So naming a book after a slang word that's kind of, that's popular, a pop cultural reference, you don't know. You don't know if it's going to mean something in 10 years, 20 years, or fade away from popularity. But ultimately, there was nothing else to call it. But the captain, I love this cover. The only reason I borrow you for the moment, because I want to say the importance of representation and in Pride Month right now. I got no pushback on this from the first year. It came out in May 2021. For a whole year, people love this. No problem. And then comes bills like the Don't Say Gay bill and whatnot, and I'm suddenly at the receiving end of a coordinated Twitter hate attack from people who think that this is a man in a dress leading a children, it's a captain, but ostensibly, leading into children where? I don't know, into a lifestyle of sin. Who knows? Not big readers, they didn't really read the book. Thank you for letting me borrow that. So I just, and I swear to God, this book is funny. I don't want to be a downer. These are comedies we're talking about, but we're in a moment in time where, a very precipitous moment where we're in such danger of backslide, and it's not just LGBTQ issues, it's women's rights. It is book banning, again. It is defunding of libraries, things that we thought were sacred or that, we had done these fights, already. And it just shows you how you have to be vigilant. You can't take your foot off the gas pedal at all. There's a wonderful Judy Blume documentary. Has anybody seen it? Any chance? Yeah. I think about this from her perspective, when her books were targeted for banning 40, 50 years ago, and thought this was settled in the Reagan administration. And here she is, her books are at the top of the target list again. But thank you. It all starts with a great teacher. I had an English teacher who took an interest in me, and librarians. So many librarians. I love librarians. I had, I can do what I do today because I had parents who encouraged me to get a public library card and forced me to use it. And the wonderful children's librarian, Mrs. Brado, I still remember her name, who took an interest in me. So thank you for being a teacher. Here, yeah. Sure, on the art of writing itself, or on becoming a writer, don't. No, that's not, I don't need the competition. No. Yeah, I mean, on the craft, it's so individual, you know, for everybody. First of all, you're doing the right things by coming to an event like this, because there are many, many answers to this question, and the more answers you hear, you can sort of decide what works for you, and maybe or maybe you'll find your own unique path. That's a little bit of, column A, a little bit of column B, etc. For me, I like to write in the morning because it is, the day will throw every reason at you not to write. Oh, we're out of almond milk, I better go to the store for 9 hours. The hardest part of the job is butt in chair, like honestly, like showing up. So the second part of that is I know many writers who are incredible outliners, will outline everything beautifully, perfectly, and before they sit down and start writing a single word. I am what we call in the biz a pantser, which means fly by the seat of your pants a little bit. Now I'm drawing a blank on who came up with this, but the headlamp or the headlight theory of writing, in which is the case. I know about as far ahead as you can see with the headlights at night, but what's just around the bend, I don't know. And for me, I have a good starting place, I know where I'm going, but it's that middle part where I love to have room for discovery, because if I don't know what's gonna happen that day, then there's more impetus for me to show up to work. It's a little more exciting to show up, because I could surprise myself in minutes. I could also surprise myself by going, this is garbage, sometimes you have to turn the car around and start, because you missed the turn that way. But that's how I like to do it. And in terms of being a writer, I went to film school, so I didn't study it formally. I consider myself kind of self-taught. But absolutely, I would always come to events like this. There are wonderful, many podcasts on writing, the craft of writing, and getting published too. There are wonderful podcasts about querying and finding agents and whatnot. And then we can talk more after if you want. But the last thing I'll say is, sadly, the business of publishing has changed a bit in that editors don't have time to edit, like the idea of suede elbow patches and we're gonna go line by line and edit. Sadly, there's just not the same time. They're more like production managers now, where they're shepherding a project through the publication process. Toward that end, the more polished and more ready a book is for publication when you send it out, for consideration, the more apt the easier it is for them to say yes. So I always recommend first-time writers work with a freelance editor if they can. Take some of that upon yourself if that's possible. If not, because it can be an expense, but have trusted friends read your work, and not just people who will tell you what you want to hear, but people who will be honest, hopefully not brutal, but they can do it in a gentle way, but honest with you as well. Because I think that's very helpful. The further you can get it to be publication ready, the more willing you're going to find agents and editors willing to take you on as a writer. So I hope that helps. Yeah. Yes, now back.
So actually, I was going to ask a very similar question about how much do you outline versus how much do you just go with it, but I'll switch tacks a little bit.
Okay.
You did a good job of answering that, but how do you, you said that, you published your first book when you were 45, is that right? So how did you?
Your question should be like, how is that possible? You're so young. Thank you.
How did you do that while you had another job? How did you find the time to write and continue that?
Well, I'll tell you, for many years I didn't. For many years I would write at night, because I was more of a night owl, and it didn't get done. I had this moment where I thought, it's an issue of priorities for me, right? So I thought, I am giving all my energy to the day job that I had, and oftentimes I'd be too tired to write at night. And so the writing, it was very easy to not let that happen. So I switched. I trained myself to try to be a morning person, and I would get, even if that meant getting, starting writing at 5 a.m. or something, I would try to get in a couple hours before, before work, before the job, and for me, it was just switching, like, as soon as I felt like that was my priority, that so much more of my energy went in that direction. And that, I don't know that that's what made the difference, but coincidentally, that's the book that then took off for me. And I had others where I didn't, I just couldn't find an agent or couldn't find anyone interested. But part of it is I had gotten better, and it was the right story at the right time and all that, but I think it's important to prioritize what's important to you. And if you are an artist of any kind, of creative of any type, giving your energy to that, I think. The day job I had too was I was working in an entertainment law firm. And part of that job is I was writing contracts. I was writing, legal contracts for other artists whose dreams were coming true. That's depressing. You don't really feel like writing after a long day of that. Yeah, you feel like drinking a lot. I feel like there was going to be another answer to that. I'll come, if I think of what else I was going to say, I'll come back to that. Yeah. Yes?
I want to hear more about how you chose to do the audiobook for the novel.
And I also read the audiobook for the Celebrants, yeah. That was, I had a lot of fun, but it's mostly because there's enough of a high school theater kid in me. So I think I put this into the gum ball. I haven't read it in a long time. But I was like, I was very into high school theater, and then I did the supporting roles, and then my junior year I show up, and I'm like, I'm an upperclassman. I'm gonna be the lead in the school play, and they're like, we're doing the Diary of Anne Frank. So the Gunkel was a book. I felt close enough to that character where I thought I wanted to try it. People always ask me, are you the Gunkel? He's younger than I am. He's richer than I am. He has more hair than I do. He's sadder than I am. He's been through some stuff, but more or less. I felt enough connection with that character that I wanted to try it. So, by the way, the publisher didn't necessarily think this was a good idea. Like, I had to audition to read my own audiobook. And you guys probably have people come through here where you're like, it's not always the best idea for the author to read their work. So I sent in my audition, I got the green light, go ahead, and I was bragging to a friend. The wonderful Michael Urie had read my first two audiobooks, great actor. And I was bragging to my friend, I'm gonna try the audio. This was in 2020. And my friend turns to me and goes, you're gonna put an actor out of work during a pandemic? Don't worry, Michael Urie's on a television series with Harrison Ford right now. He's fine. So yeah, once I decided to try it, they rented me a recording studio in Palm Springs, where I live, professional recording studio, which is it's sort of like the egg crate padded. Well, I was like, I knew I was going to end up in a padded room as a writer. But no, and I did this. I only recorded this like a month ago. They don't really do the CDs anymore. It's all digital now, so you can do it kind of last minute. If you know anything about Palm Springs, California, though, if you read the Gunkel, you know that it's hot, right? And the first thing they have to do is turn off the air conditioning because the microphone picks up the sound. And so it's me and a director who's in New York or LA, I forget, but in the headphones, so listening into the recording session. And then there's a window, and I'm looking out into where there's an audio engineer at a soundboard. He's the only other person that's there. His side of the wall is air conditioned perfectly. So he's looking at me through the window, and at the end, and he's just this gruff guy, like not my usual reader, but he's listening to the whole thing. At the end of the book, he was like, you're read your own book. He's like, you're crying. Oh. He's like, I'm not crying, I'm sweating. I was also crying, but I didn't want to tell him that. I was feeling self-conscious. But I had a lot of fun doing it. I don't know. I hope you have fun listening to them. I keep worrying that somebody's like, we're gonna tell them to stop it. Like the but they're too nervous to tell me not to do it anymore. But I have fun. I don't know that I'll always do it. It is interesting. I think, like, you know, when you're writing a book, it's yours and yours alone. It lives in your head for a very long time, so you hear it a very specific way. And when an actor reads your book, they do it there, you know. And by the way, they should. It's an actor's job to interpret the text. But it's hard for me to listen to. No one else would know the difference, I don't think. But if it, you know, to the extent that anyone's curious to how it sounds in my brain, now there's a record of that. Any question? Was there any questions back there? But no, it's about the new kids on the block. I'm very moved tonight. What? And I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to come back in a second. I just want to say one other thing too, because, and I promise this is a comedy. I promise this book is funny. Because listen, what happens when you get together with old friends, right? You drink, but after you drink, you laugh. I also lost one of my closest friends a few years ago, and I owe a lot of this book to her too. There is something about losing a friend. I think that you know, you lose grandparents. Eventually, we lose our parents. There was like a sort of natural order to think. If a parent loses a child, that's horribly out of the natural order. Something's terribly wrong. But friends, you know, particularly at my age, I have friends who are 20 years older. I have friends who are 20 years younger. You know, there's no deal with friends, and so when you lose a close friend, it really forces you to question your own mortality in a way. I think that you know, that's a sort of unlike other loss. And sometimes, you know, when you're grieving a friend, there's no, you know, people understand what it's like to lose a mother or to lose a brother. There's a built-in context. We have many friends for many things, for many reasons. And so if you say, I've lost my friend, people don't always know how to react or how deep that loss is. But sometimes these losses are, you know, harder than losing a spouse or something too. You know, like I don't think there's enough written about it. Anyway, the book is dedicated to her. I see some very friendly faces here too. And so many magical things have happened with this book. I hope she's fine. Yeah. Let's have something funny now.
Okay, this isn't funny. It's kind of related to what you just said, though. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you for being so accessible to your readers. You and I have chatted a bit.
Oh,
Pretty
good.
savvy. We chatted a little on Instagram back and forth, and you've been so generous with your time. I wanted to say that. But I write a little bit about suicide loss. I've had a couple of short form pieces published, and I've been working on a book because I have a day job, so it's been 2+ years of trying to write this damn book. But my question is, what was behind the decision to have the friend and the Celebrants die by suicide? Was it a personal loss, or what kind of thing?
So writing about suicide and grief and whatnot. Again, funny, hopefully. Not suicide, but the rest of it. No, I think you know, to choose for that, you know, and I've not lost someone to suicide. I don't particularly know what that loss is like. But narratively, it was a way. Narratively, it was a way to to sort of inspire the idea of this pact. And so that's why I chose that. And there's also something I think, you know, that is, and in this book, this is not spoiling it because it all takes place, you know, more or less before the story starts. To not know, you know, in this book is a drug overdose, so to not know, not really know the extent to which it was purposeful, or maybe accidental, or maybe just being cavalier with life, or maybe not caring. I think it's, you know, it leads the, you know, it's hard to reconcile that. It's something that haunts you, I think, for a very long time. And it was also, I wrote a lot of material on the sixth character in this book, who's not in the book, the one who passes away in college, because he's the glue that keeps these characters coming back together years after, you know, years after years. And it was important, even though he doesn't really appear in the book, to understand who he was and what all of their relationships were to him. So there's a lot of writing that doesn't end up on the page too. That's part of my process. I will say something slightly funny now, that someone pointed out that in The Big Chill, the dead body, the character who passed away was played by Kevin Costner. It was his first movie role. And he was cut entirely out of the film. So I was saying there's like a lot of material on this character who doesn't appear in the book, and they're like, oh, it's like Kevin Costner got cut out of The Big Chill. It's like,
And his
it's
name
kind of
was
like-
Alex.
And his name is Alex, yeah.
Close to.
Close enough, close enough, yeah. But I want to thank, too, other people. I am very grateful for people who interact with me. I love interacting. There are people who forgive me if I don't recognize you immediately, come up to me, and they're like, you know, don't you know who I am? I'm Bubble Bath Reading Fan 9. Okay, good. I was thinking if that was you, I'd be like very embarrassed. Like, and I'm like, Bubble Bath Reading Fan 9, that's you?
Bubble Bath 10.
Oh, Bubble Bath 10, so close. You know, I'll know people by their handle, but not their name, or whatever. But it's a real joy to do that. I try to interact. I will say, like, I always wanted to be a writer, and I grew up in rural Maine, rural state in Maine, and I always thought, like, you know, this is years before social media, the ability, like, there was just no way to have contact with writers, like many of us are accessible today. I'm accessible because I'm procrastinating. But if you do talk to me next time, maybe you should say, like, get off here and start writing. I thought, you know, as a kid growing up, I was like, well, maybe it's, you know, this is a job available to people who grow up in Manhattan, or if you have a society name, or whatever. But then, lurking in Maine. Yeah, exactly. And so when I graduated from the children's room in the library, I went straight for Stephen King, and I read, you know, every single book, which is maybe why I write about loss and grief. I don't know, maybe that had a profound effect on me. No, but we write very, very different things. But just the idea that someone was proving it was possible in a rural state, it captured my imagination. I've never met him to this day. I'd love to. My family thinks sometimes I'm a big deal, and I have to remind them I'm not even the most famous writer named Stephen from Maine. Yeah.
Funny that we I wrote 7 or 8 books on TV. My parents told me I didn't want it, so I discovered if I laid in a certain position in my bed with a mirror that went right into the television, and I'm like,
That way. Not just a hat rack. You had that all figured out. Wow. That's even scarier, kind of, watching it go through a mirror. Yeah. Yeah. Come on, that must be a couple more questions. Yes.
We just went to Palm Springs the first time like a month ago. And I'm partially inspired by the book, and there's like kind of like Oscars on Sunday. There's so many characters and people. And I guess what I'm saying is, with its specific moments from your time, living in a part of time that inspired you, so like this is where I want to see my book.
Take place. I think so. The Gonquil, the original idea for the Gonquil sort of came from. Well, I mean, clearly, like I love like Auntie Mame, I love Mary Poppins, I love Maria from The Sound of Music, all those sort of magical caregiver kind of stories. And so I wanted to do an entry in that, and then intellectually, I was thinking about sort of writers from the mid-century. So Patrick Dennis, who wrote the Auntie Mame books, and the first one was in 1955, I think, or Tennessee Williams, or sort of either closeted or writers, queer writers who were not able to write gay characters, and instead probably created these larger-than-life women as stand-ins for the gay men that they just couldn't write at that time. And it'd be fun to reclaim one, you know, for that. So that intellectually. But then my brother came to visit with his 2 boys, ages 3 and 5 at the time, and I don't have kids. But they were going to stay for the week. He lived here in Boston, and he's an attorney, and he got called into court on behalf of one of his clients 24 hours after arriving, and he left me with his 3-year-old and 5-year-old. And his wife. It wasn't as tragic as all that, and his wife was there too. But I was, you know, they were disappointed. They wanted to spend the week with their dad as much as anything. And So I was flailing that week trying to keep them entertained. I took him to a zoo. It's called a zoo. It's a zoo. It's a really nice zoo. We also have a zoo. You probably didn't go there. But all they, and it has like giraffes and elephants. It's a desert, so you can have all these like Saharan kind of animals. And all I wanted to see was a roadrunner, which the cartoons lead you to believe are like this tall. They are not. They're like pigeons. Which means I could have taken them to the Chipotle parking lot to just see that. But instead we went to the zoo, so I have to like knocking around. I'm like at the information desk. I'm like, do you have any roadrunners? And he was like, we have one in the aviary. They had a broken leg. That's why they couldn't run. So it's like, that's the roadrunner I showed them. Busted leg. Anyway, I'm posting these funny stories about that for the week, and my editor was like, I saw you sort of flailing on Instagram. For the week, she was like, do you think there might be anything to write about there? And that's sort of, then it was kind of off to the races. I feel bad because there are wonderful book clubs now who've done these sort of Gunkel-themed trips to Palm Springs from Denver or Chicago or now Boston or whatever, and they come, and everybody brings their caftans and they go to the restaurants in the book and all that. And I feel really bad because I didn't put my favorite restaurants in the book, I didn't want to have to wait in line. I didn't want to be that popular, and then like I can't get in. No, but it's so fun. I've met up with a couple of them, and it's great. They're like, can we come to your house? I'm like, no. But we could meet in a public place, crazy people. You seem really nice. Yeah, I mean, part of the fun of choosing Palm Springs for that is it's kind of a fish out of water story for these kids too, right? Like, so having fun with what they could see in Palm Springs that they wouldn't necessarily see in the, I think they're from Connecticut, right? Yeah, and so the throuple over the wall, that was a lot of fun. But some of these desert things, because Palm Springs is a city, for better or worse, that more people associate with retirement than raising kids. So putting kids in that location was a lot of fun. Yeah. But now when I'm at Oscars for like drag brunch or whatever, and I'm like drunk at 11 o'clock in the morning, and someone taps me on the shoulder and be like, "Hey, did you write The Gunkel?" No, don't know. I've never heard of it. Yeah.
So what's next?
I haven't read
That's
this
my
yet, but
agent or my mom.
I mean, do you constantly have books in the works?
I do have another book in the works, and I think it's going to be out next year. But after that, I have to take a break. I have to take a little break. I don't know. I would love, I wish I were a good enough writer that I could be like a Donna Tartt and go away for 10 years and just come, publish once a decade, and that would be it. But she got bills. So yeah, I am working on something new. Also, like, these projects are also in development as movies and TV series too. So I'm also, in addition to being a novelist, I'm also a proud member of the WGA. I'm on strike. I gotta go. But shepherding those projects through is something I've been occupying some of my time as well. So fingers crossed. We'll see. Nothing's happening at the moment until we can resolve the strike. By the way, I wanted to just not get on my soapbox too much, but support writers, pay writers. I mean, the past couple of years we've all been through. Like, we've all, books, movies, TV. That's what got us through. And now. Not only are they not being respected by corporations, we're at the scary moment of AI suddenly out of, I was always raised thinking like, oh, artist jobs are the ones who can't be replaced, and now actors and writers, who knows what. By the way, it's not intelligence either, it's theft, because they just feed every work of art created by a person into them. Want to spit out something new. Yeah, that's not smart, that's theft. Yeah.
So you referenced that, well actually I'll preface by saying, I'm someone who's always wanted to be a writer, but I am just a reader at the moment, and I read like across a lot of genres. And you've referenced that you read a lot of Stephen King, also John Tartt. how do you feel that you learn from other genres and incorporate that into your own work, or is that just like purely for pleasure?
Yeah, I read some other genres, but there's lots I don't. You know, I'm not a big sci-fi reader. I'm not a big romance reader. Other once in a while. So there are other genres that I just don't happen to do. But sadly, it's just the bulk of my time is spent writing. So I don't have enough reading time that I would like to, that would allow me to sort of venture into other spaces. And I'm very privileged to be asked to sometimes read things in advance, either for a blurb or to help support a friend. You meet other writers. Sometimes I'll go to these conferences and I'll be like, can we just have a pact of non-aggression? Like, I won't read your book. Like, you don't read my book. It's okay. We could just be friends. That doesn't always go over well. And, you know, but it's rare, and I read for research a lot too. And so, you know, for projects that I work on. So the idea of like going into a bookstore like this and just browsing and picking up a book simply because I want to read it, that feels like a real luxury still. So, yeah, I mean, obviously I try to read. But I'm not much of a reader, actually. Can you imagine? Jenna's book club pick gets canceled for not reading. But yeah, what do you like to read? Is there something I should be reading?
Oh goodness, I actually am quite a big romance
Yeah.
novel reader. Most recently, I just finished reading Yellowface.
Oh yes.
Really great.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
on my list for when I get
Yeah.
back. Also on the New York Times bestseller list this weekend
Highly recommend.
for her. I'm excited. I'm very excited. Yeah. One more? We have time for one more question? Anyone? Yes, right down front.
What kind of fun rabbit holes have you fallen into while writing this book, if any, or any research?
Writing this book, I'm going to try to say it's spoiler free. I'm assuming most people haven't read it. It's only, I mean, but it's been out a week, people. Come on. Let's see. Well, there's a little section about art forgery in here, and I went down quite a rabbit hole with that, which was really fascinating. There's also, I don't want to keep anything, there's also an incident with skydiving in here that was the most fun to write. I've been skydiving once. Has anybody been skydiving? Does anybody want to go skydiving? If you do it now before you read this book. Oh, that's funny, I promise it's funny. And so, like, reliving the time that I went skydiving in my 20s and then researching that a lot and what can go wrong while skydiving. That's quite a rabbit hole. So yeah, it's always very, you know, these rabbit holes, like, and sometimes it's so fun. Well, somebody asked me a question the other night. It's like, okay, so you have, I'm not going to spoil anymore, but I mentioned skydiving, art forgery. Or when I wrote Lily and the Octopus, a large section of it takes place at sea. People are like, I didn't know you had a boat. I don't have a boat. What are you talking about? It's research, right? It's research, and so you can get fascinated by things that sometimes, you know, sometimes I'm just doing reading about something. I was like, oh, that's got to go. You know, I've got a notes app of things I'm fascinated in that hopefully will work their way into other books. But the danger is that it is also procrastination, yeah. And then it's 10 o'clock at night and I'm like, man, I promised myself I'd write 1,000 words today. I've got 2 hours, let's go. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming out and supporting independent bookstores. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Stephen, and thank you as well for all coming out.